What's going on YouTube? Bacon here bringing another video. This one going to be my week 4 match for the OLT Harmony Division Season 5. This week we are taking on heatlordjosh, coach of the Leeds Rhyperior. I'm coming into this game off 2 wins, so sitting at 2-1 now, and I believe Josh is sitting at 1-2 as of the playing of this game. But he's got a very threatening team, and let's get right into the team matchup here. So, looking at his team, he's got Celesteela, Clefable, Snorlax, Starmie, Mamoswine, Mega Beedrill, Mienshao, Noivern, Raichu, Spiritomb, and Kecleon. So right off the bat, a couple things that are difficult to deal with. First up is the Starmie. I just don't have very good switch-ins on my team for offensive Starmie. My dark type is Crocodile, which is obviously a ground type as well. Celebi can kind of do it, but Celebi's not very good against the rest of his team. Volcanion obviously isn't going to appreciate things like Thunderbolt, so if he's just running like offensive Life Orb with Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, Psychic, something like that, he doesn't really even need actually Ice Beam now that I look at it too badly. I mean, outside of my Celebi, of course. Could be really threatening. I think it also gets Signal Beam as well if he wants to hit the Celebi that way, and I'm not even bringing Celebi this week, so the Starmie is just a big problem. It outspeeds my Mega Diancie, it speed ties with my Ambipom, so kind of a difficult Pokemon for me to deal with right off the bat. A couple other things, Mamoswine's always a huge threat, very difficult to switch into that Pokemon. I do at the very least have Scizor, which is a great way to threaten out the Mamoswine, potentially get a Swords Dance up in his face, but the Celesteela kind of negates that a little bit. Looking at the Clefable set, I'm expecting him to bring like an Unaware Berry set with Flamethrower to hit my Scizor. It seems to be pretty common practice whenever you're facing a Scizor these days, is to bring Berry, Unaware Clefable. That way Swords Dance Scizor can never just sweep through your team. Otherwise, he could bring any number of things. I could see the Beedrill coming, but I could also see him leaving it off because I have brought Pythagoras like every week. So that's a pretty good stop to the Mega Beedrill there. Snorlax I could see coming. It eats some of the special mons on my team for breakfast, and a Curse Berry and a Snorlax could actually be somewhat problematic for me if I let him get it set up. But otherwise, Noivern also is probably likely bring, I think, just because it outspeeds my entire team. First of all, I believe it gets Flash Cannon to hit Mega Diancie if he wants to go that route. It's Flamethrower for my Scizor, so just really difficult as well just for me to switch into with that mon. But if he is dropping Draco Meteors, that's going to allow me to get into some of my breakers, potentially open up a setup opportunity for my Scizor in the back. So yeah, let's get right into my team builder here. Looking at his team, like the first thing off the bat I noticed was that Scizor was really good if I could get rid of the Celesteela, so I'm actually bringing, once again, the Life Orb SD Scizor with Swords Dance, Quick Attack, Bullet Punch, and Bug Bite. Quick Attack hits some of his faster mons that resist my Bullet Punch, specifically the Starmie, I think was the main thing I was trying to hit with the Quick Attack. Obviously at +2, Quick Attack's going to be doing a lot more than the Bullet Punch. Since I'm not running Iron Plate, I'm running Life Orb to boost both of them. Bullet Punch is really nice to pick off things like the Mega Beedrill, the Mamoswine, the Clefable if he's not running Berry, and if he's not running Unaware Clefable, SD Scizor is looking really, really good in this game once the Celesteela is out of the way. Quick Attack also hits like the Raichu, for example, if he happened to bring that. I don't really anticipate seeing the Raichu, but in the case that he does bring it, Quick Attack I felt like was pretty necessary, at the very least for the Starmie, if nothing else. Yeah. Next up here is Hot Pockets of Rotom Heat, running I have Papa Berry Rotom Heat with Will-O-Wisp, Overheat, Volt Switch, and Defog. Running max HP, pretty close to max speed, Timid Nature, with a little bit into physical defense. This is kind of my best Celesteela pivot on the team. I'm expecting him to run physical, or maybe mixed with like Flamethrower this week, and I am generally expecting him to run a more defensive variant, but offensive variants also don't super appreciate Rotom Heat unless he's carrying a Rock-type move, like Stone Edge, which I have my Crocodile to scout out for anyways. But getting Will-O-Wisp off on the Celesteela, regardless of whether it's offensive or defensive, will be really, really helpful in the long run, making him do a little bit less damage with his heavy slams, and also negating any leftover recovery that he might be getting. Really nice pivot into Celesteela here with the Rotom Heat. Can also pivot in on things like Clefable, as long as he's not like Calm Minding in my face. But if he's running Calm Mind Clefable, odds are he's probably not unaware, or he's not carrying Berry, things like that, so that my Scizor threatens him a little bit more that way. This is also a pretty decent pivot in on the Mamoswine. With my Levitate, I obviously do dodge its Earthquakes, so I dodge its Earthquakes and resist its Ice Stab with Icicle Crash and Ice Shard. Knockoff could be a potential thing. I don't necessarily want to lose my Papa Berry on the Rotom Heat, and he could also be carrying Stone Edge on that, so that's something I have to watch out for. Also a decent pivot in on the Mega Beedrill as well, able to take those U-turns fairly well, and if I'm in front of it, he's obviously got to be concerned about a Will-O-Wisp, but he should U-turn out, potentially giving me switch initiative with a Volt Switch, because it's tough for him to decide to go into Mamoswine when I could very easily just be going for Will-O-Wisp. I think he'd be more inclined to pivot into something like Clefable, or maybe Snorlax or Noivern, something like that. Raichu if he brings it, so yeah, that's the Rotom Heat set. Just a really nice defensive pivot this game. I expect it to live for quite a while. It's just, I think, really good versus team in general. Next up here is Sarcophagus the Cofagrigus, once again coming back with leftovers, Will-O-Wisp, Haze, Knockoff, and Nightshade. Max HP, Max Phys Def Cofagrigus. I was trying to find a reason, honestly, not to bring Cofagrigus this week, but it's just too good against his physical offense. Like, it resists the dual stabs from the Mega Beedrill and gets rid of his adaptability boosts. If he touches me, obviously the Mummy ability transfers onto him. It's a pretty good wall from Yanxiao as well. I do expect both those Pokemon to be carrying Knockoff, but it's still a pretty good wall to both of those in general. Can get some Will-O-Wisps off to burn them. Haze is nice for the Clefable. If he starts to Calm Mind up in front of me, I can just Haze its stats and get rid of those. This also is a good check to the Snorlax as well. If he's running Cursed Snorlax, I can just Haze that thing as well. If he's at -1 speed, I should be outspeeding him. So, and obviously I can get a burn off with Will-O-Wisp. Knockoff is also really nice to potentially remove berries from the Snorlax coming in. Remove leftovers from the Celesteela, the Clefable, things like that. And just spread chip around his team that way. Nightshade after 4 over Shadow Ball, just because if I am going kind of back and forth with Clefable, I feel like Nightshade's going to be doing me a little bit more work than Shadow Ball will in general. Also, same thing with like a Calm Mind variant of Spiritomb if he happened to bring that, which again I don't really anticipate in this matchup, but it's always good to be prepared. Like I said, I was trying to find a reason not to bring Cofagrigus, honestly, but it just had way too good of a matchup on paper. The Mummy ability is just really nice to spread throughout his team, because he's got some very valuable abilities with things like adaptability on Beedrill, Regenerator potential on Mienshao, Beast Boost on Celesteela, things like that. Just getting rid of those abilities would be really, really nice for me. Next up here is Dexter the Ambipom. First game Ambipom's come to at all this season, but I felt like it had a really good matchup in this one. Running Silk Scarf Ambipom with Fake Out, Return, Knockoff, and Low Kick. Low Kick obviously does a ton of damage to the Snorlax. It's very heavy and it is obviously super effective. So it is a base 120 power move on that. It's also a base 120 power move on the Celesteela. Still not doing a ton, but it's doing about 30 to 40% to a defensive Celesteela. So could be useful in the long run if the Celesteela is chipped down. I do anticipate that to be his main response to my Ambipom here. But overall, I felt like the Fake Out pressure was just really nice versus team. His faster mobs like Beedrill, Noivern, Starmie all really don't appreciate taking a Fake Out. It should be doing pretty close to 50%. Mienshao as well, which could be running Choice Scarf. Should all be taking about 50% from my Fake Out here. So I felt like that was really nice, especially because I didn't want to have to run a bunch of Choice Scarfers this week just to deal with his faster mons like Beedrill. Being able to pressure that thing with Ambipom is really nice. I believe it might actually die to Fake Out after Stealth Rock, so I'm not mistaken. Mega Beedrill's Phys Def is just really, really bad. He might be running a lot of HP in there, so I'll have to be concerned about that. But I do have pretty good switches to Mega Beedrill in the back, and getting that Fake Out chip on it over the course of the match is going to be really valuable to me. Fake Out into Low Kick also 2-hit KOs the Mamoswine, which is nice to note. That way I don't have to worry about, like, if I come in on the Mamoswine, I'm at full health, not worried about his Ice Shard. I can just go for Fake Out into Low Kick. If he's not expecting the Low Kick, he's going to lose his Mamoswine. Otherwise, his best switch-ins like the Celesteela anyway, so I'm not too concerned about that. Next up here is Teikala Volcanion, running Choice Specs Volcanion this week with Steam Eruption, Fire Blast, HP Ice, and Sludge Bomb. He really does not have good switch-ins for modest Choice Specs Steam Eruption. Like, even Starmie, even like max HP Starmie is still taking about 50% from Steam Eruption. And if I get a burn, if he's not carrying leftovers, it's going to be a huge, huge problem for him going forward in the game. And a lot of other stuff just kind of falls over. Like, I 2-hit KO the Clefable with Steam Eruption. Obviously, Fire Blast is going to threaten the Celesteela. If he's not running Snorlax, which he wouldn't necessarily want to switch in to potentially get burned anyways, I can basically just click this button for free versus his team. He doesn't not have any kind of switch in for this move. Like I mentioned, max HP Starmie is still taking about half, and if he's not running Recover, that thing's going to get 2-hit KO'd at some point during the game. And if he's running offensive Starmie, I can live a Life Orb Thunderbolt from it and just fire off the second Steam Eruption and remove that thing from play. I do 2-hit KO the Noivern with the Steam Eruption as well, but I do have HP Ice on there just in case. That should OHKO the Noivern from full. And Fire Blast obviously threatens things like the Mega Beedrill, Celesteela. I could just kind of get this thing in a lot over the course of the match, fire off some really strong moves, mostly Steam Eruption, I'm guessing, and put in some huge work on his team. So if Volcanion and Nabs were in 2 mons, I think we're going to be doing alright this game. Lastly, here is Nixon the Crocodile, running Choice Scarf Crocodile with Intimidate, Earthquake Knockoff, Stealth Rock, and Stone Edge. So running Scarf Rocks is always kind of a risky gambit, but he's going to have to scout, I think, for my Choice Scarf on my Crocodile, things like his Starmie, things like his Mega Beedrill, if he happen to bring that. He's going to have to scout for Choice Scarf Crocodile if his mons are in range of it. Intimidate, I felt like was better over Moxie in this game, because I don't really anticipate Crocodile to just be sitting on the field and like spam Earthquake through his team. He does have the Celesteela, he does have the Noivern, so I don't really think, and he has like Clefable to take Dark type moves, so I don't really think I'm going to be locking myself into a single move that's going to just kind of blow through his team, but it's kind of nice to have the Choice Scarf Crocodile option there to help kill things like the Starmie, Beedrill, Noivern, all that jazz. Intimidate's really nice in this matchup, just because even on like a blind lead, like in a blind lead type of scenario, if I get an Intimidate off on something like Mamoswine, that's going to ease my switch into something like Rotom Heat or my Scizor in the back. Also pretty good to Intimidate pivot on Celesteela. Celesteela doesn't actually get any ways to boost its attack stats, maybe outside of potential Z moves. I'm not sure what kind of Z status moves it would get that would do that, but it can really only boost its speed with things like Autotomize, Flame Charge, that kind of stuff. So if I knock off its, like if it's running Weakness Policy Celesteela and I knock that off, he's really got no way to increase his damage output outside of stacking Beast Boost. So if I can get rid of its Beast Boost ability with Pythagoras or just Intimidate, cycle it down with Crocodile, he's really not going to be able to do a whole lot with an offensive variant of Celesteela, and it's also going to actually ease my switch-ins to my Crocodile. If he's like running a defensive variant and predicting him to go for a Heavy Slam, I could potentially switch in on that thing with the Intimidate drop and go for a knockoff to remove its leftovers or something like that. So Scarf Crocodile just, I felt like was an important offensive check in this game, especially so I don't just get like clean swept by things like Noivern from lead, and then just really nice to put him work on the rest of his team. The Starmie especially is going to have to deal with some kind of Pursuit shenanigans. I don't actually have Pursuit on this set, but he definitely has to fear it, because if I Pursuit trap that Starmie, he's in a lot of trouble, especially against my Volcanion. So yeah, that's about it for the team builder here. Let's get right into the matchup. As you can see, he brought the Mamoswine, Mienshao, Celesteela, Noivern, Starmie, and the Clefable. So right at lead here, like I mentioned, I'm kind of expecting a defensive variant of Celesteela to help take on my Crocodile, help take on my Ambipom, help take on my Scizor, things like that. Also would be a good check to my Mega Diancie. Mamoswine, I'm expecting to be kind of an offensive Life Orb type set. Probably Choice Scarf, Mienshao if I had to guess, and then maybe like a Life Orb or Z-Move type Noivern. Starmie, I'm expecting to be more offensive with Life Orb as well, and then like a physically defensive type of Clefable to help handle my Crocodile. Like I mentioned, definitely gonna have to watch out for like a Unaware Berry type set. Definitely want to get my Stealth Rocks to see if that thing's taking chip damage, because that'll be really important intel for my Scizor later in the game. But it's also a good check to my Crocodile, so I definitely have to watch out for that thing over the course of the match. So looking at lead matchup here, I don't have a whole lot of reason not to just lead Ambipom and click Fake Out. Like, if you lead Celesteela, faking that thing out is going to be really good intel for me to tell me whether he's physically defensive, specially defensive, offensive, whatever. See what item he's running, if it's leftovers, Rocky Helmet, neither. Like, getting all that intel right off the bat is going to be really nice. And then Fake Out into 2 returns actually does 3-hit KO the Clefable. So I don't mind staying on that thing if I can get rid of it, because that's a huge obstacle to something like my Crocodile, and potentially actually my Scizor if he is running that Unaware of the Berry type set. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead with Ambipom here, and we're just going to click Fake Out turn 1. So he leads with his Mienshao here, and like I mentioned, I'm expecting this to be a Choice Scarf variant of Mienshao, so I obviously don't want to stay in without the Fake Out active, but I'm just going to go right for Fake Out here with my Ambipom and see what he wants to do. Don't think he let me get a whole bunch of chip off on his Mienshao, but he actually does on turn 1, and it's obviously an offensive variant of Mienshao, doing over half with that Fake Out. So clearly I need to be worried that he stayed in this turn. I don't want to catch a Scarf High Jump Kick on my Ambipom. It's way too useful in this matchup, I think. So I'm going to go right out into my Pythagoras. I figured worst case he'd U-turn here, but he makes a really solid play and goes right for the knockoff and gets rid of his Regenerator ability. So seeing the Regenerator and now seeing Life Orb, it's clear that He is not Choice Scarf, which is really important intel for my Ambipom. That means I will be able to 2-hit KO with Fake Out plus Return. Actually, I think Return might OHKO it from full, or pretty close to that. So gonna go right for the knockoff on my own here with Sarcophagus as the Noivern comes in and remove its Life Orb. That's really nice for helping my pivots here. And I'm just gonna sack off my Cofagrigus. It's not super important in this game because it's mainly here from Mega Beedrill anyways. I do have the Rotom Heat to help take on the Mamoswine, and the Mienshao is chipped to this point. Like, it did get mummied there, so its Regenerator did not activate. And because I did make him take that Draco Meteor drop, I can just get him my Volcanion for free and click Steam Eruption right now. He's got no good switch-ins, like I mentioned. And this Starmie comes in and takes about half, so it looks like he's running a more HP-invested Starmie here. And he's running leftovers as well, so all good to note. He is not an offensive variant of Starmie. I was super concerned about offensive Starmie in this game. Very glad to see that he didn't bring it. He does actually have the Recover though, so I'm not going to be able to 2-hit KO him with Steam Eruption, unfortunately. But fortunately for me, I am going to get a burn and a pretty high roll this turn on these Starmie, so he's basically forced to recover again. And like, worst case scenario, he stays in to go for T-Bolt. I figure, like, there's no way you go for a water move right here, so what I'm going to do is go right out into my Crocodile and kind of bluff that I have the Pursuit, because if I do have Pursuit and he switches out, his Starmie's going to die, and then, like, what's his switch into the Volcanion in here, so I am going to bluff the Pursuit here to try and get him to stay in and just go straight for a knockoff. Obviously, I don't have Pursuit on this set, but he doesn't know that, and I do, so I'm going to go right for the knockoff here. Worst case scenario, he goes out into Clefable and I get some knockoff chip and remove its item, but he thankfully does stay in with the Starmie. That's a huge threat gone, and it really opens a door for my Volcanion in the back. So he does unfortunately now know that I am Choice Scarf into Crocodile, and he goes into Celesteela, which he would obviously not do if this was an defensive variant of Celesteela. So predicting this to be a setup variant of Celesteela, I'm going to go right out into my Rotom Heat and predict him to go for Autotomize. He actually goes for Flame Charge instead, so he's definitely full physical Celesteela, because otherwise he'd be running Flamethrower. But he goes right for the Flame Charge there. I'm like, okay, the only way he knocks me out here is with Z Stone Edge. So what I'm going to do is go back out into my Crocodile to scout for that and get the Intimidate drop, as he does go right for the Continental Crush. So as I mentioned in my team builder, Celesteela really doesn't have good ways of beefing up its attacks. So if I just Intimidate cycle with Crocodile a few times, this thing's going to be no threat to me. So what I decided to actually do here is just go for Scarf Stealth Rocks. Like I mentioned, the Stealth Rocks are going to be super important, one, for chipping down the Noivern, but also for determining whether that Clefable is unaware or Magic Guard. So he reveals Seed Bomb, no problem. He's obviously got a free Stone Edge this turn, but I'm going to go into Rotom Heat anyways. I should be able to tank it, unless he crits me, which he does, but that does put me in Eye of Pop the barrier range, and assuming he doesn't crit me this time, I should be able to live another one. So I do live another Stone Edge there, as I'm able to go for a Will-O-Wisp, and this Celesteela has been completely neutered. It's at -1 attack, it's burned. It's actually not knocking me out with another Stone Edge from this range because of the burn, unless again he crits me. So what I'm going to do is just go for a very free Volt Switch right here. I don't think you ever go into Mamoswine and risk getting burned on that thing as well. He does, unfortunately for him, miss Stone Edge, but that kind of makes up for getting the crit before. So I'm going to go for Volt Switch here, get some good chip damage off on this Celesteela, and like I mentioned, it's really no threat to me at this point in the game. So because I'm thinking I did miscalc at some point the Stone Edge damage on my Rotom Heat, I was thinking he was Adamant Celesteela, which would be my Ambipom would actually outspeed him at +1, so what I'm going to do here is go into Ambipom and go for Fake Out plus Burn into Return will knock out the Celesteela, and like I mentioned, I did calc Adamant damage off the Celesteela mistakenly, and I should be able to outspeed him in my mind, so I'm just going to go for the Return here. As it turns out, he is Jolly Celesteela. Not such a huge deal because he's at -1 and he is burned, so Ironhead's not going to do a whole ton to me anyways, but Ambipom picking up its first kill of the season here on the Celesteela, so things are looking really good for my Scizor in the back, especially if that's not the Berry Clefable. If that's not the Berry Clefable, I think I just let Noivern Draco me at the next possible opportunity and then set up with my Scizor. So he's going to first myself Silk Scarf there, and I really want to keep Ambipom around. It's still super valuable for the rest of his team, and Rotom Heat is not. So what I'm going to do is sack off my Rotom Heat here as he goes right for the Draco Meteor. Unfortunately misses, but like I'm slower than him anyways, so it's not going to really affect anything. I'm just going to go for Volt Switch on the off chance he chokes and switches, but he's going to go for Draco there, get the special attack drop, and once again this is going to allow him my Volcanion for free. I could, like I mentioned, go Scizor here and just set up on this -2 Noivern. I should be able to take a -2 Flamethrower from this thing because I'm very HP invested. But like I mentioned, I'm like almost certain in my mind that that's unaware of a Berry Clefable, which means I'm not going to be able to KO it after a Bullet Punch, with a Bullet Punch at +2, and then I'm not going to have my Scizor anymore, which is still super good against his other 3 Mons. Like, Mienshau's in range of Bullet Punch. Noivern, when it switches back in on rocks, is going to be in range of Bullet Punch. And Mamoswine might actually just die to Bullet Punch after Stealth Rocks, I'm not certain. So that is like an adamant Life Orb Bullet Punch from my Scizor. So I feel like that's a little more valuable for me to save at this point. Instead, I'm just going to go right into Volcanion and start clicking buttons again. Like, again, he has no Steam Eruption switch-ins, and Draco Meteor's not going to be doing a whole lot to me at -2. So he goes for the Draco here, manages to connect that one, and Steam Eruption is just going to blow back this Noivern. I do believe I get a burn here that's big. Yeah, I do get the burn here, which KOs the Noivern, but health on my Volcanion is not super important at this point in the match. Like I mentioned, I'm trying to win with Scizor plus Ambipom at this point, but his whole team is actually grounded, so I could potentially win with Earthquake as well on my Crocodile, but Volcanion is really just here as sack fodder for the most part. If I get it in on Clefable, it is going to do some pretty good damage, so I am going to save it for now and go out into my Crocodile. If he is Berry Clefable, my best way is probably to break through him with Steam Eruption. So I'm going to sack my Crocodile to get off some Intimidate on this Mamoswine. Turns out he is Life Orb Mamoswine, potentially Adamant. I don't know how much damage he was supposed to do with Earthquake, but it is a Mamoswine, so I was definitely supposed to die there. But at -1, he's really not a threat to me. Again, I could go out to my Scizor and use this as an opportunity to set up, but I feel like Ambipom's the better play here. Fake out into return is going to knock out the Mamoswine, so what I'm going to do here is just go right for the fake out. Not really play around with the Mamoswine. He was potentially out of range of a low kick there anyways, and I felt like the Clefable coming in was fairly likely. We do see Unaware, and we do see that it doesn't have an item showing, so I'm pretty sure it's Berry, but Return's going to do plenty of damage to this Clefable. He can't just really indefinitely Moonlight Stall me here, because since he is Unaware, he has to run Moonlight over Soft Boiled. He only gets 8 of those, so I'm just going to keep firing off some returns here with my Ambipom as he goes back out into his excuse me, into his Mamoswine to eat this. He does unfortunately live with 1 Life Orb hit left, and I don't want to take any unnecessary chip damage on my Ambipom in case I get into range of a Moonblast from the Clefable. So I'm going to go out into Scizor here, predicting an Ice Shard as he does, and he's just going to die to the Life Orb recoil. So he's really only got one option here, and that's to go out into his Clefable. I don't want to lose my Scizor because it's potentially the way I'm going to need to revenge kill the Mienshao there, and I think he'd probably go for Flamethrower this turn if he has it. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned in the chat while I was playing this game that I was suspecting him to be Berry Clefable. Maybe he would have gone for Flamethrower here, but unfortunately he does go for Thunderbolt to hit my Volcanion on the switch-in. Thankfully he does not paralyze me, and now he loses him on to Steam Eruption. So Clefable goes down here, and all he's got left is the Mienshao, which is, like I mentioned, in range of Bullet Punch, or Fake Out for that matter for my Ambipom. So here I'm just perfectly content to sack off my Volcanion to just prevent the Mienshao from getting up a substitute or anything weird like that. I'm not really anticipating him to be substitute, but regardless, my best play is just to leave Volcanion in here to eat the high jump kick. It goes down, and I can freely go out into either Ambipom or Scizor to get this revenge kill, but I feel like Ambipom's earned it. It put in a ton of work this match, so I'm going to go out into Ambipom and just click Fake Out to clean up this game. So very good game to Josh. I think he brought a really solid team, and obviously it was a very close game. The Starmie was super scary for me. Like I mentioned in prep, Noivern was super scary. Very glad those things went down relatively early in the match, and Ambipom just put in the finest of work this game. This is the first game I brought it to. He might not have been expecting to see it, and him running offensive Celesteela just really compounded Ambipom's effectiveness in this match because he didn't have a good consistent switch into it over the course of the game, and Fake Out pressure was just really nice versus his team with some of his more frail offensive threats. So like I said, GG to Josh. Good luck going forward in the season. We are now sitting at 3-1, coming off 3 straight wins. Very nice here. Looking ahead to the rest of the season, probably gonna need like 5 wins, I think, to make playoffs would be my guess. Like 5-3 would probably do it. So definitely gonna keep trying to keep this streak active here going forward. And yeah, hope to see you guys all in another video. Thank you very much for watching to this point if you did, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.